The wedding was meant to save her village. Instead, it crowned her the queen of a monster. One heartbeat later, the servant's disguise cracked, and the Alpha King rose from the ashes of his own curse. Would you still say yes if the man you were forced to marry turned out to be the beast who ruled the world? Tell me in the comments below. And if your heart beats for forbidden bonds and royal destinies, subscribe and enter the kingdom before the next moon rises. The village square of Silverfen Hollow lay hushed beneath a sky of burning frost. Smoke rose from torches like prayer, curling toward a white and watchful moon. At the center, Erwin Vale stood in her mother's worn cloak, clutching the hem as the High Seer's trembling voice carried over the crowd. By command of the regent's house, the maiden shall wed the servant Caelan of Thornfield to restore peace and tribute. Erwin's mother wept softly. The villagers averted their eyes. Across the square, the servant stepped forward, tall, quiet, hood drawn low. The light struck his scarred cheek, and for a heartbeat, something ancient stared out from behind his human calm. He didn't kneel. He simply extended his hand. When the moonbone thread was wound between them, the wind itself went still. The seer's bowl of holy water rippled without touch. Erwin's pulse thundered, her skin alive with heat that wasn't fear. Then, for one impossible moment, his voice broke through the chanting, deep, low, shaking the torches. "Do you accept the bond, Erwin Vale?" Her lips parted, and when she whispered yes, the moon flared so bright it silenced every breath in Silverfen Hollow. Somewhere, far beyond the marsh and mist, the wolves began to sing, and in that single note of the wild, fate took its first breath, the kind that births kingdoms or burns them to ash. The wolves' distant song faded into the hush that follows prophecy. Erwin's heartbeat echoed it, wild, terrified, alive. The moonbone thread still burned faintly around her wrist, a pale scar of silver light that refused to fade. When she looked up, Caelan was already turning away, cloak stirring like smoke. The ceremony had ended, but no one dared to move. Even the torches flickered low, as if unwilling to speak before the gods. Only High Seer Mehron broke the silence. "The bond is sealed," he murmured, "but not understood." Those words followed Erwin home through the misted marsh paths. Her mother waited at the door, small and tired. "He's gone to the Thornfield stables," she said softly. "You're wed to a servant now, child. Try to be grateful it wasn't a soldier." Erwin nodded, though the words felt hollow. She could still feel that strange pull between them, like an invisible tether humming whenever she breathed too deeply. At dawn, the world smelled of wet hay and iron. The Thornfield estate loomed, a black fortress carved from froststone, its banners stiff in the cold. Servants hurried in silence. Lady Sareth's voice sliced through the air like glass. "Remember your place," Sareth told Caelan, watching him lift a crate that should have broken a lesser man's back. "You may fool the peasants with humility, but I see a soldier's spine when you bow. Keep your eyes down, or I'll remind you how servants learn obedience." Caelan said nothing. He simply inclined his head, the way a wolf pretends to sleep when surrounded. From the shadowed archway, Erwin watched him work. Her new husband, her stranger, moved with a discipline that betrayed training no servant should possess. When one of the horses shrieked and reared, he reached up without thought, whispering something in a language older than the moon court. The beast stilled. The other stable hands stared. One crossed himself, another fled, muttering. Later, when Caelan brought a small bundle to her cottage, bread, herbs, and a length of rough cloth, she hesitated to take it. "For your mother," he said quietly, "you shouldn't risk Lady Sareth's wrath." "I've endured worse than her voice." The way he said it made the air heavier, older. That night, Silverfen's wind howled against the shutters. Erwin woke to find the moonbone thread glowing again, tracing her veins with light. She stepped outside. Across the marsh in the faint shimmer of moon fog, Caelan stood at the water's edge, barefoot, staring into the reflection of the sky. "You hear it too, don't you?" she whispered. He turned, startled, not by her presence, but by what she knew. "The song," she said, "the one that started at the wedding." "It's not a song," he answered softly. "It's a memory. The world remembering what it lost." Before she could ask more, the ground trembled. A cry split the air, a villager's scream from the edge of the fen. Together they ran, the mist curling like frightened breath around them. A trap. Sareth's men stood there, swords half drawn, surrounding an old hunter accused of poaching Thornfield deer. Kaelin stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between the soldiers and the trembling man. "Stand aside, servant," one guard barked. He didn't move. Instead, his voice deepened. Not louder, just heavier, carrying weight like thunder before the strike. "Leave him. The moon sees false justice." For a heartbeat, every soldier froze. The torches dimmed, as if the night itself obeyed him. Then, shaking off fear, the captain spat. "Take them both." Steel met air. Kaelin caught the captain's wrist mid-swing, turned it, and the blade shattered, as though made of ice. Gasps erupted. Erwin saw it clearly, the faint shimmer of light beneath his skin, the reflection of a wolf's gaze burning through the man's disguise. Before anyone could speak, he stepped back into shadow. "You saw nothing," he commanded, and the guards blinked, like men waking from a dream. By the time they realized he was gone, only the broken sword remained. Erwin found him again near dawn, kneeling in the reeds, breath ragged. "You shouldn't have followed me," he said. "You protected them, you protected me. And now you'll draw eyes that should never look your way." He rose slowly, the limp returning as he forced his strength to vanish. The moon faded, leaving them in the blue hush before sunrise. Erwin touched the thread on her wrist. "What are you?" Kaelin's jaw clenched. "A servant," he lied. Then, after a pause that sounded like regret, "But not for long." The marsh wind sighed through the reeds, carrying a single whisper from Meron's temple. When the wolf wakes, kingdoms tremble. And far above, hidden by dawn's first light, the moon watched its chosen pair begin to fall toward destiny. The dawn over Silverfen Hollow was pale and uneasy. Mist crawled across the water like breath from something ancient that refused to die. By the time Erwin returned home, her mother was sitting by the hearth with a look that made the room feel smaller. "The seer was here," her mother whispered. "He said to keep the doors barred tonight. The wolves are restless." Erwin's fingers brushed the faint burn of the moonbone thread around her wrist. It pulsed once, like a heartbeat that wasn't hers. Outside, the village stirred. Rumors spread that Lady Sareth's hunters had been attacked in the marsh. By shadows, not beasts. Some said the forest itself had risen. Others claimed the wind took shape and broke their blades. But Erwin knew what she saw. A man who shouldn't have been able to break steel, yet did. She found Kaelin again near the old smokehouse, tending a wounded stag. Its flank was torn by steel, but he worked with gentle precision, whispering old words under his breath. The blood on his hands steamed as if meeting frost. "You'll draw suspicion," she said softly. "Let them suspect what they fear," he replied. "Fear keeps fools from curiosity." Erwin hesitated. "They're calling it a curse. They think the fen is haunted." Kaelin's mouth curved faintly. "They're not wrong." When she knelt beside him, the stag opened its eyes. For an instant, Erwin saw her own reflection shimmering within them, a faint crown of light hovering above her brow before vanishing like breath in cold air. She gasped. Kaelin's hand gripped her wrist, firm but not cruel. "Don't speak of what you saw." "Then it's true," she whispered. "You're not a servant?" His tone darkened. "No, but the name I once bore is dead. Let it stay buried." Before she could answer, the bell at the village square rang twice. Warning. Riders were coming. Lady Sareth Thornfield rode into Silverfen draped in crimson, her guards like iron shadows. She dismounted near the temple, eyes sweeping over the kneeling villagers. Someone interfered with my men last night, she said. A thief and his accomplice, who think they can defy the Moon Court. Her gaze landed on Erwin, mud-stained skirt, nervous hands, and then on Kaelin, standing just behind her. You, Sareth sneered, the servant who married the villager, step forward. Kaelin obeyed, head bowed. The soldiers drew closer, but Mehron's voice broke through the silence before Sareth could speak. You tread on cursed ground, Lady Thornfield. The fen remembers blood. Sareth's lips twisted. Then perhaps it will remember yours. Old man. She ordered her guards to seize Kaelin, but as they reached for him, the wind turned violent. A whisper of wolves echoed across the marsh, and the torches blew out all at once. The soldiers stumbled back and shivering. Kaelin lifted his head. For the briefest moment, the air thickened, like a pulse of invisible power rippling outward. The wolves howled again, closer this time. Sarasreth froze, her blade half-drawn as Kaelin's voice cut through the chaos. You came for a servant. You found your sentence. The torches reignited by themselves, revealing no wolves, no figures, only Sareth's soldiers trembling, their blades slick with dew. Kaelin was gone, vanished into the fog. That night, Silverfen did not sleep. The villagers whispered that the servant had called the wolves, that his bride was a witch marked by the moon. Erwin tried to pray, but the flame in her candle danced erratically, never still, never quiet. Outside, she saw movement in the reeds, eyes glowing faintly gold. She stepped out, clutching a shawl. The figure waiting there was Kaelin, mud on his boots, rain streaking his hair. You shouldn't be here, she said. They're hunting me, he replied. But if they find me, they'll burn the whole village to make an example. Then leave Silverfen. I can't. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in the air changed. The marsh grew silent, the rain hesitant to fall. You are the reason the curse stirs, he said, and the reason it can break. Erwin took a step back, heart pounding. Me? You're bound to me by the moon's law, Erwin Vale, and if they kill me, they'll kill their king. Before she could breathe, the sound of hooves thundered across the field. Torches flared at the edge of the fen. Sareth's soldiers had found them. Kaelin grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the reeds. Don't let go, he said. The moon above flared white, and the marsh exploded with light. When the soldiers reached the clearing, there was nothing left but water, and the echo of howls rising toward the mountains. The soldiers returned to Thornfield Estate with nothing but torn cloaks and fear in their eyes. They whispered that the marsh itself had swallowed the fugitives, that wolves of mist guarded them. But Lady Sarah Thornfield did not believe in ghosts, only in power. Her fury turned the manor into a storm. Every mirror in the hall was draped in black silk. Every servant was questioned, some whipped, others sent away into the snow. But when all answers failed her, Sareth climbed the east tower and stared toward Silverfen Hollow, where the marsh shimmered faintly under the moon. You can't hide forever, Kaelin, she whispered, not when the blood of kings runs too loud. Erwin awoke to the sound of water dripping from the reeds. They were deep in the wild fen now, where even light feared to enter. The air smelled of iron and pine. She turned and saw Kaelin kneeling beside a low fire, his back bare, marked with old scars, some from blades, others from chains. Where are we? She asked quietly. Between kingdoms, he said, where no law dares to breathe. He wrapped his shoulder with a strip of leather and met her gaze. You saw what I am, didn't you? She hesitated, then nodded. You're not a man, she said. Not entirely. No, I was a king before I was a shadow. The Moon Court called me Alpha Dravon, heir of Wolf's Reach, until they cursed my name and buried my throne beneath lies. The fire snapped, throwing gold across his face. They feared me, he continued, because I carried the ancient bond, the power to command truth. When the regent could not rule me, he chained me in human form. Erwin's heart thudded. And your curse? Kaylin's eyes glinted. It can only break when my true mate speaks the name I lost. She froze. Then at the wedding, you spoke it without knowing. Silence swelled, heavy as fog. Then he added, barely audible, "That's why I can't leave you." While Kaylin and Erwin hid among the marsh gods, Thornfield festered with schemes. Lady Sareth gathered the court spies by candlelight. On her desk lay an old sigil, an insignia half-burned, bearing the Dreovon crest, once the seal of the Alpha line. "Find me proof," she commanded. "If the servant is who I think, his death will crown me Regent Queen." Beside her, Lord Vale Thornfield, her cousin and warlock, poured dark sand into a silver bowl. The grain shimmered and began to swirl, forming an image: the marsh, the girl, the faint outline of wolves circling like smoke. "He's not alone," Vale said. "The bond has awakened. The girl anchors him." "Then cut the anchor," Sareth replied, quietly. That night she sent assassins into the fen. Erwin awoke to Kaylin's hand covering her mouth. "Don't move," he whispered. Through the reeds, faint torches glimmered, too many, moving fast. The wolves around their camp bristled, silent as statues. Kaylin's eyes flicked gold, his voice low as thunder underwater. They followed the scent. Erwin's pulse roared in her ears. "What will you do?" "What I swore I'd never do again." He stepped into the clearing, cloak falling from his shoulders. His shape blurred, bones shifting like wind through iron. The air itself recoiled. When the first arrow hissed toward him, it melted mid-flight. The marsh came alive. Mist solidified into lupine forms, glowing white as moonfire. The assassins screamed as shadows leapt from every pool, dragging them under. Erwin stood transfixed, the spectacle both terrifying and divine. When it ended, Kaylin knelt amid the fading fog, chest heaving. His eyes met hers, wolf and man, both pleading for her to see him as neither monster nor god. "Now you know what I am," he said, voice raw. "This is what your bond wakes." Erwin trembled. "Then I'll carry it with you." He stared, astonished, as if she had just broken a second curse he hadn't dared to name. At Thornfield, the seer's mirror cracked. The warlock gasped. "He's awakened, my lady. The curse is faltering." "Then kill the girl," Sareth hissed, "before dawn." But Mehron, watching from his temple, heard the same echo through the water. He closed his eyes and whispered to the wind. "Fate moves too fast now. The moon chooses her queen." As dawn bled through the fen, Erwin felt warmth against her wrist. The moonbone thread was no longer just a scar. It had turned into a mark, glowing faintly like a crown. Kaylin noticed it, his expression unreadable. "You carry my sigil," he murmured. "Every creature of Wolf's Reach will feel it. You've bound yourself to a kingdom you've never seen." Erwin looked toward the rising light, her voice steady. "Then it's time I see it." Kaylin hesitated. "It's not safe. Neither is staying here." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he nodded once. "At dusk, we move north, toward the ruins of Wolf's Reach Keep. If we survive the journey, you'll see the truth they buried." Erwin stepped closer, her breath misting with his. "And if we don't?" "Then we'll die as we were meant to live, together." The wind rose, carrying the scent of snow and distant war. The wolves lifted their heads toward the moon's ghostly face, and their howls became a promise that would shake kingdoms. The road north to Wolf's Reach Keep wound through forests so ancient they whispered names the world had forgotten. By the third night, frost glazed the branches like silver veins. Erwin walked beside Kaylin, her cloak heavy with dew, her thoughts heavier still. The marsh had fallen behind them, but its echoes followed. The scent of rain, the memory of wolves, the shimmer of his eyes whenever moonlight touched them. "You were once a king," she said quietly. "I was born to rule," he corrected, "but I learned that rule means nothing when truth is chained." "And what is truth to you, Kaylin Draven?" He looked at her then, a sad smile playing at his lips. "That the gods are cruel, and love is their rebellion. They reached the trading town of Hymir, perched on the borderlands where the moon court's banners still flew. A festival was being prepared, crimson drapes, silver lanterns, musicians tuning lutes under the watchful glow of the rising blood moon. Whispers swept through the market square. Lady Sareth herself would attend, to celebrate a royal restoration. Kaelin tensed as he overheard the news. "She's baiting me," he said, "parading a lie to draw the truth out of hiding. Then she means to claim your throne." "Worse," he said, voice darkening. "She means to crown herself with your blood." He handed Erwin a rough woolen cloak. "Stay hidden when we enter Hymir. No one must see your mark." "You mean the mark you gave me?" she said softly. Kaelin's eyes flicked to her wrist, the faint silver sigil glowing beneath her skin. "It binds us both. If she discovers it, she'll know you're the true mate." But Erwin lifted her chin. "Then let her know. I won't live my life in the dark while others speak my name in fear." Kaelin hesitated. Her courage was fire, his caution frost. Together they burned and froze the same world. That evening, Hymir shimmered beneath the blood moon. The streets overflowed with masked dancers and perfumed torches. Laughter mingled with drums, but beneath the revelry, soldiers lined every alley. At the heart of the square, Lady Sareth Thornfield stood on a marble dais, veiled in red silk. Beside her, a man wearing Kaelin's face knelt, a puppet alpha, chosen to convince the people that the bloodline had been restored. "Citizens of Wolf's Reach," Sareth's voice rang like glass. "Your true king has returned. The curse is broken. Bow before your alpha." The crowd cheered, blind to deceit. But in the shadows, Kaelin's hand tightened around his blade. His jaw set. "She's stolen my name," he whispered. "Then take it back," Erwin said. She stepped forward before he could stop her, slipping into the edge of the torchlight. Her pale eyes caught the moon's reflection, silver fire against red silk. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "Who is she?" someone whispered. "A villager," said another. "Look at her eyes. Frostborn." Sareth froze, her smile cracking. "Seize her." Kaelin moved before the order finished. He surged onto the dais, pulling Erwin behind him, blade drawn. Gasps rippled as torches blew out and the blood moon dimmed behind clouds. "Enough lies," Kaelin thundered. "I am Kaelin Draven, Alpha of Wolf's Reach, your rightful king, and she is the bond you tried to bury." The false Alpha stumbled back, terrified, as Kaelin's aura erupted, a blinding storm of white gold light that shook the banners and shattered every mirror in sight. Sareth's warlock cousin, Vael, raised his staff. A black pulse of magic collided with Kaelin's power. The square erupted into chaos. Wolves materialized from the shadows, spectral and real, tearing through the guards. Erwin fell to her knees, clutching her glowing wrist. The moonbone marks seared her skin, and her voice trembled as she whispered the words the seer had once taught her. "The river remembers." The ground split. The fountain at the square's center burst open, flooding the plaza with silver light. Every torch drowned in brilliance. When the light receded, Sareth's red veil was gone, her face pale with fury. Kaelin stood over her, his sword dripping with moonlight. "You were never meant to rule," he said. "You were meant to kneel." Sareth spat. "Then kill me and prove the beast they call you." Erwin's voice rose from behind him. "No, a true alpha commands mercy, not blood." Kaelin hesitated, blade hovering at her throat. Then he lowered it. Let the moon judge her. The blood moon pulsed once, then cracked like glass across the sky. Sareth screamed as her reflection shattered in every mirror around the square. The pieces swirling into nothing. The people fell silent. For the first time in years, they bowed, not out of fear, but awe. As dawn broke over Hymir, the festival fires burned low. Kaelin stood beside Erwin on the temple steps, their shadows long and intertwined. "You risked your life," he said. "You risked your throne," she replied. "Both were yours from the start." But Meron's voice echoed from the crowd, carried by the wind. "Beware, my king. The curse's heart is not broken, only wounded. The regent marches from the north, and his vengeance wears a crown." Kaelin turned to Erwin, the first light of morning glinting on his silver eyes. "Then the war for Wolf's Reach has begun." And as the first wolves howled over the city's walls, the blood-red moon faded behind the mountains, leaving only the promise of what love and fury would bring next. The cheers of Hymir had barely faded when the sky darkened again. Not from clouds, but from banners, black ones, bearing the sigil of the Northern Regent, the man who had cursed the Alpha line and ruled Wolf's Reach through fear. The army's arrival was swift, their discipline merciless. The Regent's voice carried through iron horns, echoing across the valley. "Surrender the impostor who calls himself Kaelin Dravon. The girl beside him will die first to prove his deceit." The people who had just bowed now trembled. Loyalty and terror wrestled in their eyes. Erwin stood beside Kaelin, her cloak whipping in the cold wind, the sigil on her wrist burning brighter than before. "They're not coming to take you," she whispered. "They're coming to erase you." Kaelin's gaze swept the field. Hundreds of soldiers, siege engines, catapults. He exhaled slowly. "Then the world will remember who I am." By sunset, Hymir's walls were wreathed in fire. The Regent's archers rained arrows tipped with obsidian runes, spells designed to strip beasts of their power. Kaelin deflected most, but one grazed his shoulder, sending black veins crawling across his skin. "It's curse fire," he gritted, tearing the arrow free. "Then let me heal it," Erwin said, reaching for him. "You can't." But her fingers touched his wound, and the blackness hissed and vanished. Kaelin stared. "What did you do?" I remembered what Meron said. "The moon doesn't bless one. It blesses two." A distant roar broke through the smoke, the Regent's war machines rolling closer. Kaelin turned toward the city gates. "If the curse fire can't touch me, it won't touch them." He threw back his cloak, light exploding from his hands, as the wolf mark on his chest ignited. The air howled. Wolves appeared, not summoned, but answering. From rooftops, alleys, and forest ridges, they came, spectral and real, their eyes burning with lunar fire. The first wave of the Regent's soldiers met a wall of fangs and fury. Hymir became legend that night. Inside the city, Erwin felt the moon's pull intensify. The bond tethered her heart to Kaelin's every breath. Each injury he suffered flared across her chest like phantom pain. Meron's spirit appeared in the smoke, his voice resonating through her mind. "The curse is tied to his blood, but bound by your courage. You are the bridge. If he falls to rage, both realms will burn." Outside, Kaelin had lost control of the storm he'd unleashed. His wolf form tore through the Regent's forces, unstoppable but unseeing, destroying everything, even walls meant to protect. Erwin ran toward the gates, ignoring the chaos. "Kaelin!" she cried. "Stop!" The wolf turned, his form immense, eyes gold and wild. Recognition flickered, and then the beast bowed, lowering its head as her hand brushed its muzzle. "You are not their monster," she whispered. "You are their king." The fury ebbed. His shape shuddered, light collapsing inward until he knelt before her, human once more. The battlefield eerily silent. A horn blasted from the northern ridge. The Regent rode forward on a black stallion, his armor carved from onyx and bone. His face was ageless, handsome and hollow. "So the beast bows to his bride," he sneered. "Fitting. You were always too soft for power." Kaelin rose slowly. "You killed my father. You poisoned my name. And for what? A throne built on fear?" "On control," the Regent said. "Something you never learned." The two clashed in the center of the field, blade to blade, light to shadow. The Regent's sword drank the moonlight, twisting it into darkness. Every strike sent shock waves through the city. Erwin stood frozen until Meron's whisper stirred again. The curse fire isn't in his sword, it's in his crown. Break it, and the moon will choose. She moved while they fought, slipping through wreckage until she reached the regent's fallen banner. Climbing its pole, she leapt toward him just as Kaelin disarmed his foe. Erwin's fingers tore the crown from the regent's head. A scream ripped through the night. Not human, not beast. The sky split open, spilling light across the valley. When the brilliance faded, the regent was gone. Burned away by the moon's judgment, Kaelin stood in the aftermath, the mark on his chest glowing faintly gold. Around them, wolves howled, not in rage, but reverence. Erwin stumbled, the sigil on her wrist fading. "It's done," she whispered. Kaelin caught her before she fell. "No, it's beginning." He lifted her hand, pressing his forehead to it. "They saw you calm the beast. They'll follow you as they follow me." But her gaze moved to the horizon, where the first rays of dawn broke through smoke. The people saw the truth. Now they'll expect peace, and vengeance can't rule it. Kaelin's lips curved in a faint, sorrowful smile. "Then you'll have to teach a king how to forgive." The wolves gathered behind them, forming a ring of silver eyes. In their midst, the High Seer's voice echoed faintly, carried on the wind. "The Alpha is unmasked, the bond is proven, but the curse has one last route. The crown itself must choose." The broken crown lay between them, glinting faintly in the new sun. Kaelin reached for it, then stopped. "Not yet," he said softly. "Not until Silverfen stands free." Erwin nodded. "Then we return home." The flames of Hymir smouldered in their wake. Above them, the moon faded into dawn, whispering to the stars the first true name of their union, King and Queen of the Moonbound. The war was far from over, but for the first time, the Alpha King walked openly beneath the sun, his heart claimed, his curse undone, and the kingdom trembling at the edge of rebirth. The road home smelled of ash and winter. After the fall of Hymir, Kaelin and Erwin led what remained of the free wolves back toward Silverfen Hollow, the cradle of their bond and the heart of every legend that had ever whispered their names. But peace is a word that never stays long on the tongue of kings. When they reached the valley, Silverfen was not the same. The fields that once shimmered with moonlight now lay blackened. Smoke rose from the fishing huts, and upon the temple hill fluttered a crimson banner, the sigil of the regent's northern army. Erwin's chest tightened. "They came for the villagers." Kaelin's jaw set. "They came for you." From the ridge, they watched soldiers march the townsfolk in chains toward the frozen square. The new commander, a woman in jagged armor, read from a decree. "By order of the northern regent, Silverfen is guilty of treason and harboring the false Alpha." Her voice was cold as flint. Behind her stood a warlock holding an obsidian staff that pulsed with the same curse fire Kaelin once carried in his veins. "They mean to burn the Seer's temple," Kaelin said. "They'll erase the prophecy, root and branch." Erwin touched his arm. "Then let's make sure they remember it instead." That night, under the broken moon, Kaelin climbed the ridge above Silverfen. He raised his hand toward the heavens, the old runes carved into his palm glowing silver. His voice rolled through the valley, low, ancient, undeniable. "To every fang that remembers the oath, rise." The forest trembled. From snowdrifts, from caves, from the hidden marsh paths, wolves emerged, black-grey and white as frost fire. The air thickened with howls. Erwin stood at his side, the mark on her wrist blazing like a crown. "They follow you," she said. "No," Kaelin murmured. "They follow us." At dawn, the regent's army struck. Siege fire rained down upon the hollow. But Kaelin was no longer a fugitive. He was the Alpha unbound. He led the charge with the wolves at his flank, his movements a blur of moonlight and fury. The first line of soldiers fell before they could reload their ballistas. In the chaos, Erwin and the freed villagers raced to the temple to rescue the High Seer Maeron. Inside, the ancient man sat unafraid, hands resting on a silver bowl filled with glowing water. "You return as I foresaw," he said calmly. "But prophecy is a circle, child. To end the curse, one of you must step outside it." Erwin frowned. "What does that mean?" "The curse feeds on legacy, the blood of kings repeating its own sin. To break it, the bond must be offered freely to the moon. Only one voice may speak that vow." Before she could ask more, the doors burst open. Soldiers poured in. Meron lifted his staff. The walls flared with runes of protection, but they were fading fast. "Go," he told her. "The Alpha needs you more than I need saving." Outside, Kaelin faced the warlock who led the regent's forces. The man grinned. "Your mate burns with prophecy. When she dies, so does your crown." Kaelin lunged, but the warlock drove his staff into the earth. Curse fire spread across the ground like black roots, encircling Kaelin in flames. Erwin saw it from the hill. Without hesitation, she ran through the fire. The heat seared her skin, but her mark pulsed brighter, pushing the darkness back. "You can't save him," the warlock screamed. "I don't need to," she replied, voice trembling with conviction. "I only need to believe him." Her palm pressed to Kaelin's chest. The sigils of both their bonds merged, silver and gold spiraling into one brilliant flare. The curse fire shattered, turning to ash. Kaelin rose, his power surging anew. The wolf inside him howled, not in rage this time, but freedom. "Tell your regent," Kaelin said, voice like thunder. "The moon remembers her true king." He struck the warlock down, splitting the staff in two. The shockwave leveled the battlefield, and the crimson banners of the north burned to nothing. When the smoke cleared, Kaelin found Erwin collapsed, her skin pale and cold. The moon mark on her wrist had faded completely. "Erwin," he whispered, cradling her, "stay with me." Her lips moved faintly. "It's all right. The bond had to choose. Now, it's yours." Kaelin's tears hit her face, glowing faintly as they fell. "Don't you dare leave me." But Meron's voice carried across the wind one last time. "The bond is not death, my king. It is memory. Find the moon's heart and call her back." Kaelin lifted his gaze to the sky. The moon, half hidden by clouds, gleamed faintly as if waiting. "Then I'll find it," he vowed, "even if I have to tear the heavens apart." The battle was won, but the hollow was quiet, its peace bought with sacrifice. The villagers buried their dead beneath the frost, and the wolves guarded the temple without command. As Kaelin placed Erwin's still form upon Meron's altar, the wind shifted. The moonlight touched her face, and somewhere in the far mountains, a faint, answering howl rose, hers. The wolves' howls lingered over Silver Fen Hollow, long after the battle ended, but their voices were no longer cries of war. They were laments. On the temple altar, Erwin Vale lay motionless, her body bathed in faint moonlight. Her hair fanned across the stone like spilled frost. The mark that had once bound her to Kaelin was gone, leaving only silence where their hearts had once beat as one. Kaelin stood beside her, hands shaking, eyes hollow. He had faced armies, warlocks, and curses, but not this. "I won every battle," he whispered, "and still, I've lost the only reason I fought." The temple torches flickered low. A shadow took form beside him. High Seer Meron's spirit, thin and luminous. "The moon has not taken her," the seer said softly. "It has only hidden her where mortals cannot reach." Kaelin turned, desperate. "Then tell me how to find her." "Through the moon veil, where the bond was first woven. But beware, the heart of the moon judges the truth of love. Enter unworthy, and it will devour you." Kaelin's voice broke. "If love is all I have left, it will have to be enough." The seer's spirit led him through the marsh, now transformed by night. The reeds glowed faintly, every droplet of dew shimmering like silver flame. At the edge of the fen, where the earth met reflection, the moon veil shimmered, a mirror lake of light, pulsing like a living thing. Kaelin knelt before it. Erwin Vale, he whispered, my bond, my curse, my queen, I come for you. The surface rippled. The wolves howled once, then fell silent, and the Alpha King stepped into the light. Instantly, the world vanished. Kaelin found himself standing in a place of endless silver. The air shimmered like water. Above him, countless moons floated, each one a memory of something he had forgotten. He saw his past unspool in fragments, his father's crown, heavy and cold, his mother's voice warning, love is the only law the Alpha cannot command. His own arrogance, his hunger for control, the moment he refused the mate the moon had chosen for him. He fell to his knees. So that's the sin I pay for, he whispered. I turned away from fate once, and now fate turns from me. A voice answered, soft, familiar, and breaking his heart. Then why did you come back for me? He turned. Erwin stood there, clothed in light, her eyes the same silver he had followed across every nightmare. But she was not flesh. She was soul, standing at the moon's edge. Because I was a fool, he said. Because I thought I was a king, until you taught me I was just a man. And what do you seek now? Not a throne, just your hand. The veil brightened, reacting to his words, but the light trembled, unstable. You cannot stay here, Erwin said. The living cannot breathe under eternity. Then I'll trade my breath, Kaelin answered, stepping closer. Their hands met. Warmth, impossible and real. The moons above them flared. The silver beneath them turned to fire. The goddess of the moon, unseen, but felt, spoke through every beam of light. Love born of fate is easy. Love proven through pain is divine. Prove you are more than the beast that defied me. Kaelin's body convulsed. The wolf inside him tore free. The full alpha form, vast and terrifying. Erwin reached toward him, but the beast circled her, growling, eyes wild. You are his curse, the goddess said. If he loves you, let him choose peace or power. The wolf lunged, not to kill, but to test. Erwin did not flee. She placed her hand on its muzzle, whispering through tears. You don't need to protect me anymore. Just see me. The beast froze. The fury in its eyes softened. Its breath slowed. And from the shadow of its heart, Kaelin stepped forward. Human again, whole again. I see you, he said. I always did, even when I was blind. The fire dimmed. The moons aligned. When Kaelin opened his eyes, he was back in the temple. The torches blazed anew, the wolves outside whined low, and Erwin gasped, her chest rising with breath. He caught her in his arms, tears burning down his face. You came back, he whispered. You brought me back, she corrected, voice faint but steady. Outside, the clouds parted, revealing the full moon. Now whole again, its curse lifted. Silver light poured through the broken roof of the temple, crowning them both. High Seer Maeron's spirit appeared one final time. The bond is complete. Wolf and woman, moon and heart, all one. But every kingdom reborn needs a vow. Kaelin and Erwin rose, still holding each other's hands. Together they spoke. We vow to rule by love, not fear. To heal what the curse broke. And to let no crown ever weigh heavier than the heart. The wolves howled in answer. A sound like joy, like release. As the first light of dawn touched Silver Fen, petals of moonlight drifted from the sky, dissolving into the soil. Every field the regent had burned sprouted green again. The temple bells rang for the first time in generations. Kaelin turned to Erwin, voice low. The curse is gone, but the world will still test us. She smiled faintly. Then let the world try. It forgot what happens when a king fights alone, and when a queen stands beside him. He kissed her forehead, and for the first time, the Alpha King smiled without sorrow. The moon faded behind the sunrise, content at last. Dawn broke over Silver Fen Hollow like a prayer answered. The sky, once heavy with smoke and shadow, now shimmered with pale gold. Every reed, Every stone seemed reborn, washed clean by the moon's tears. At the temple steps, Caelan Draven, the once hidden Alpha King, knelt before the woman who had died and returned for him. Erwin Vale, her eyes still carrying the silver of the moon veil, reached for his hand. "Rise, Caelan," she said softly. "The kingdom no longer needs a beast. It needs a man who remembers why he fought." He looked up, and for the first time since the curse began, his eyes were entirely human, warm, tired, and alive. The people of Silverfen gathered that evening beneath the sacred fen willow, where generations had once come to plead for mercy from the moon court. This time, they came not to beg, but to bless. The high seer Mehron's staff, now borne by his apprentice, marked the place of the oath. Wolves stood shoulder to shoulder with villagers, no longer beasts and masters, but kin. Erwin stepped forward first, her voice carrying through the hollow. "The blood of kings built kingdoms, but the love of the forgotten built hope. Let this crown bind no one's freedom again." She lifted the reforged crown, no longer gold, but moonsteel and silver fenwood intertwined, and turned to Caelan. "My king," she whispered, "will you share the throne, not hold it?" Caelan smiled faintly. "I will share it and kneel before no one but the woman who taught me what a kingdom truly is." He knelt. She placed the crown upon his head, then bent, and he placed the same upon hers. The wolves howled, the villagers cheered, and the willow shed 1,000 petals of light, sealing the vow. Thus began the rule of King Caelan and Queen Erwin. The moonbound sovereigns, under their reign, Wolfsreach changed. The laws of fear were burned and rewritten. No child was branded by blood, no village tithed under hunger. The wolves became guardians of the land, rather than symbols of terror. Erwin walked among the people daily, teaching that strength was not in dominance, but in devotion. Caelan rebuilt the royal citadel beside the marsh, so the capital and the common soil shared the same breath. When storms threatened the valley, the wolves stood along the banks and howled together, their voices weaving through the wind like a promise. For the first time in living memory, the moon court itself stayed silent, as if the heavens had accepted peace at last. Years later, on the eve of another frostfall, Erwin stood by the river where she once salted fish as a girl. The water glowed faintly under the moonlight. Caelan came to her, silver now threading his hair. "Do you ever miss the simplicity?" he asked. She smiled. "No. The village girl in me found her peace the day the servant she married stopped pretending to be small." He laughed softly, his arm around her waist, and the servant found his kingdom the day she stopped bowing. As they spoke, a ripple moved across the water. The reflection of the moon shifted, forming words only they could read, the final message of the moon veil. "Love is the last law. Keep it, and the world will follow." Erwin leaned her head against his chest. "Then that's our commandment." Caelan kissed her hair, "and our legacy." Centuries later, bards would sing of them, of the village girl who defied the court, and the servant who was a king in disguise. They would speak of the night when wolves sang as the moon split open to bless a love that refused to die, a bond that outlived crowns and curses alike. And in every retelling, the people of Wolfsreach would end with the same whispered line, passed from mother to child, lover to lover, the vow that shaped their world. The moon remembers her king because his heart remembered her first. As the final petals of moonlight drifted over Silverfen, the wind carried their laughter, faint, eternal, woven into the breath of the land itself.